Welcome to another special report from Catholic Family News. I'm Editor-in-Chief Brian McCall, and I'm happy to be joined today by Mr. Richard Carlucci, who is the moving force behind a wonderful Catholic online resource called Catholic Audio Prayers. So welcome to our show at Catholic Family News today.
Thank you, Brian. It's a pleasure to be with you today.
So we're going to introduce really it's an interesting and amazing story how Richard came to this point where he started this online apostolate, and then tell you a little bit more about the Catholic audio prayers. So to sort of kick it off, I'll show you, as you'll see on the screen, this is the heart of what we want to talk about, Catholic Audio Prayers, which provides a wealth of resources for enhancing and making much more efficacious our prayer life, drawing on a vast store of Catholic devotions, traditions, and integrating music particularly into that. So this is the main website, and it has a whole variety, as we'll talk about a little bit, of various rosaries with different themes attached to them, and then also a whole variety of chaplets. That, again, chaplets are something, the rosary has sort of fallen away among many mainstream Catholics. They're hardly used anymore. But if that's the fate of the rosary, many of these rich devotions and chaplets have disappeared even a greater extent than the rosary. So really just even having them available for people to know about them. I just thought very briefly to sort of give us a flavor for what we mean, play just one of the samples. There are a variety of samples on the website of the I guess albums doesn't seem to do it justice, but the resources. This is the Holy Soul Sorrowful Rosary sample, and I'm not sure if all of them, you can tell us a little bit later, but many of them make use of beautiful recorded music of the Benedictines of Mary, Queen of Apostles, from the Abbey of Our Lady of Ephesus in Gower, Missouri, traditional Benedictine community that has really made a name for itself in reviving beautiful, well-prepared Catholic music. So it's sort of a great, wonderful, holy partnership that Richard has with them. So I just thought I'd play a brief part of this sample to give you a flavor for why we're here talking.
In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. I believe in God, the Father, the Almighty, creator of heaven and earth, and in Jesus Christ, his only Son, our Lord, who was conceived by the Holy Spirit, born of the...
So again, there's a little bit of the sample there just to sort of whet our appetites for what we're going to talk about. So let's now back up. We've now sort of got to the end. St. Thomas says, begin with the end in mind. So in a certain sense, that's the end, the online apostolate you started. Let's go back to the beginning and talk about how you got there. So maybe share with us a little bit your story. Were you raised Catholic? What was your upbringing like? And maybe just start us off there.
Sure. So I was born November 18th, 1980 in Port Chester, New York, out of Westchester County. I'm one of 6 children. Of course, my name is Richard Walter Carlucci, Richard after my father's middle name, and Walter after my mother's spiritual advisor, Father Walter Chisak, an amazing devout priest who in 1941 was arrested under accusation of espionage, spent 23 years in prison, 15 years hard labor in the Gulag.
His book, for our viewers, I think it's With God in Russia. Is that's the title? Yes, an incredible book. That's amazing that he was your mother's sort of spiritual guide, because he's such an incredible priest.
Yeah, when growing up, when you're so young, you don't realize the extent of all of the amazing people that came through my family. And only now, as I get older and I have my own children, do you realize the blessings and graces that we received. And obviously there's going to be a part in my story where those blessings and graces were also given to them. So yeah, he was a very special priest. When he was in prison, he still did masses, heard confessions, and he brought very powerful blessings with him.
Mm.
He died on the Feast of Our Lady on December 8th, 1984. And yeah, he's under consideration for possible a canonization. And right now he's a servant. His title is Servant of God.
Mhm.
So moving along, I attended Corpus Christi in Port Chester, New York. It was a Salesian school founded by Don Bosco. At the time, the Reverend Peter M. Rinaldi was head of the parish.
Mhm.
Now, Father Rinaldi was a priest who publicized the shroud to Roman Catholics in America for the first time.
Yes.
In 1940, wrote a book, I Saw the Holy Shroud. Just another amazing gift in our area, in our family. He was the world's greatest authority on the shroud. And you're hearing a lot about the shroud today, especially with Divine Mercy. I think there are many videos where there's a study of how the shroud and the image of Jesus and the Divine Mercy are a perfect match. So it's a small world.
It is. And for our listeners, the May edition of the paper, which will be out shortly, has actually the beginning of a two-part series on the shroud by Father Couture, who's done an extensive study of the literature on it and condenses that and presents it. So part one will be out in the May paper. Sorry, continue. So
Yeah, no, that's great.
Incredible influences in your life there.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to read that.
Yes.
Father Rinaldi brought full-size replica of the shroud to Corpus Christi, and a full-size, Piatis sculpture.
Wow.
And many other third, second, first class relics from Italy. The reason why I'm mentioning is because growing up, I visited a lot of these relics, and I attribute those special moments to who I am today, because I know they're very powerful.
Mm.
Yeah, just one amazing story after the other.
Yes.
Yeah.
So tell us, but coming really from a rich Catholic background, parents who introduce these important influences to you, not least of which your namesake there, your middle name. But you've obviously had difficulty, right? God often brings us on a spiritual journey through some trying experiences, and I know your family has had some of that suffering. Do you want to introduce us to that part of your story?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Let me think. There are a lot of struggles and suffering in my family, but I think one that stands out the most is my sister.
Yes.
She was born with cerebral palsy, and my parents basically sort of sacrificed their life to take care of her. And to take care of a person with cerebral palsy, you can't do it alone.
No.
You need God in your life. I think God was preparing this family for this blessing that was what I call a living rosary. And I would like to dive into her life.
Yes.
And I'd like to dive into, the miraculous story that is attached with her. It's very intimate. It is very emotional. And I just kind of want to let you know, and your audience in advance, I apologize if I sort of break down, but I think it's important that I share this because I believe it can touch, even the hardest of hearts out there. And so,
So you may want to go get a tissue box if you're listening to this, because it is definitely
yeah.
an emotional story. I attest to that. So yes, why don't you introduce this to your sister and start telling us about her?
So yeah, so my sister was born with cerebral palsy, and not much of the condition was known at the time. She suffered much under new drug trials, and just the sheer struggle of her condition. As I matured, I started to share in the graces how God was pouring out through her,
Hmm.
and I saw my parents' complete life of sacrifice as a good example to be in my own life, and not even in my own life, but my brothers and sisters. As you know, like, again, I'm one of 6 children, born alive, a total of 9,
Hmm.
and so I can tell you it was hard, and they fought often. Um, with the everyday struggles when you have a daughter who, well, didn't fight often, but if you're a parent and your daughter is always sick or your son is always sick, you have different opinions on how you want to make them better, because the goal is to make them better, and you can only go so far when you have a family member with that condition. You kind of just have to accept
Hmm.
it, and you have to be at peace with it and
Hmm.
use it for the greater glory of God. And my sister said yes to God at the first moment of her life. So um, fast forwarding a bit, I was right about the time my second son was born. Um, I received a phone call from my mother. She had told me that my sister's in the hospital, and um, it doesn't look good. There's not a lot of time left. So as I made my way down to the hospital, they're still in New York, and I moved to Upper Connecticut. As I'm driving, everything's a blur, um, as you can imagine.
Hmm.
Um, as I enter the room, um, the entire family was there. We've never really experienced this in our family. Growing up, you know, you think that your family members are invincible; they're going to be with you forever. And
Sure.
um, so I entered the room. I silently broke into tears. She was having a hard time breathing, and the doctors had put her on morphine. Um, as some time passed in the day, the doctors, used to seeing people in this state, couldn't understand why and how she was still holding on.
Hmm.
My older sister, also a doctor, couldn't understand it either. And so at this point, she was pretty much maxed out on morphine. And as time kept going by, um, each time that we thought was going to be her last moment, she would defy it,
Hmm.
um, not understanding why God wouldn't take her peacefully, why why he allows suffering. I mean, in the moment, you kind of can't really
Yes.
think, even if you know why suffering is a good thing, it's not a bad thing. The world says it's a bad thing. It's really not. But when you're in that moment, your humanity takes over, and you don't want to see people suffer in front of you.
Hmm.
Um, and so this went on for a while, and the doctor's still baffled. And finally, her pattern started to change. And without warning, we all knew the final moments were upon us. Um, my mm, my sister breathed her last breath. And the doctor's time of death was 12:01 a.m. Our hearts were broken. And we've never witnessed this. I never witnessed somebody passing away in front of me, let alone a family member. And my heart goes out to all those viewers who've experienced that. I sympathize with you. It's the first time I ever see my father cry. And while we were all crying, my oldest sister exhaled a loud, deep breath, to which we all turned. And she says, "Oh my God, it's September 8th. It's Our Lady's birthday." So my sister held on just a bit more for Our Lady. Mary wanted a rose for her birthday. And it turns out my sister's name, my mother named my sister Rosemary.
Mary's Rose, yes.
And so I wanted to share that first part of the intimate section to show the miraculous and how God loves the innocent. And I mean, he loves all of us, but Our Lady wanted her, and she wanted her for her birthday. And to me, that's not just a coincidence, and it's not just fate or luck or whatever. That was designed.
So how old was your sister at this time when she died?
I have to double check on that. Especially after I read that, my mind's sort of like,
sorry.
No.
I understand.
No, that's all right. I will definitely get back to you on that and your viewers. I don't want to give the wrong age and my mom yell at me. So,
no, but about how long did your sister roughly live with this difficult condition?
About 50 years.
50, okay. So many decades. And again, maybe tell a little bit, maybe some of our viewers aren't really familiar with cerebral palsy. Can you maybe just share a little bit the cross your sister would have carried all these years, a little bit about what the condition, meant for her?
Sure. So, with cerebral palsy, if I'm not mistaken, and I have to double check a lot of information, but it's a chromosome disorder. And she was pretty much, to give you the extent of her life, is she was bedridden. She couldn't eat by herself. She couldn't talk. She couldn't walk. It's pretty much taking care of an infant for 50 years. So those people with a child that's just born with the screaming at night and them not being able to tell you what's wrong and you having to do your best to guess what's wrong. And I think that's the hardest part, is when they can't tell you what's wrong. We've had help growing up. We've had help with nurses coming in and taking care of her, taking some of the burden off my parents. And it's she had an extreme condition. She would have her seizures. There was times where she couldn't go to the bathroom, and she would scream for days. She would scream for days. There was times where she wouldn't eat for days. I think the longest time she didn't eat or drink, if I'm not mistaken, was either 7 or 14 straight days.
Wow.
And she was still alive. And now that I think about it, why wouldn't Our Lady want her on her birthday? I mean, I don't know of anybody who would survive 7 days, let alone 14 days. I mean, Our Lady had
Yes.
her mantle over her. Um,
Yes.
and we believe with all our heart that it was important for her to be born, to be part of this family, to humble my family, to see the important things in life and not be attached to the world, even though it's hard. You know, we still struggle today. I can only speak for myself. You know,
Hmm.
I fight suffering every day with, you know, my child, which I'll get into soon enough. Um, and just the sheer nights of her not sleeping and screaming, and it sounds like somebody stabbing somebody. The screaming is that loud and so, it's so, what's the word I'm looking for? Profound. Um,
Yes.
so that's pretty much just kind of an idea of what my parents had to endure in their life.
Well, and again, as you've described it in its most severe form, which it sounds like your sister had, it's an incredibly debilitating disease and condition, and one that really made her entire life one of a suffering soul. And your parents, and as many in Catholic world, many of us talk about doing pro-life work, and obviously it's very important, protesting, going to abortion clinics, that's all important work, but sometimes I think we lose sight that what your parents did for 50 years was some of the most important pro-life work that someone can do, to accept from God, a child that God chose to suffer this way for him and for Our Lady, and to, again, as you admitted, is not always easy and wasn't always just happiness to embracing the cross is trying, but to care for her the way your parents did for 5 decades roughly is incredible pro-life work to
I,
show the true Catholic belief. So I really commend your whole family for that.
yeah, I definitely want to throw my oldest sister in the mix,
Hmm.
because she gave up her youth to be by my
Yes.
parents' side, to take care of her, and so she was taking care of my sister, her sister,
Yes.
while other um, the children and her adults her age were out having fun. Um,
Yes.
and I think, and there's a connection there too with Father Frank Pavone. Father Frank Pavone went to school with my sister,
Hmm.
and so there was another blessing there happening. And Father Frank Pavone is a close family friend, lived down the street from us, used to come over and pray the rosary with us, just to kind of keep that short.
Yes.
Um, so
And for our viewer, Frank Pavone is the talking pro-life work, a priest who's done incredible work publicly for that, head of Priests for Life as organization that he's been involved with along with others. But you've certainly met some incredible people in your life, incredible priests. So
yeah,
maybe move on to sort of the next part of your story, because there's more to come, as you hinted.
yeah. I just I'll. It's just basically, it's a very private message I
Mm-hmm.
was given permission to share with the world.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's not long at all, and it's very miraculous in itself. And so, as as we now know at this moment, after my sister passing on that night, um, we truly believe that my sister was in heaven witnessing the beatific vision of God, being sinless, of course, not from original sin, but being sinless and never having
Yes.
the ability to commit a
Mm.
sin against God.
Mm.
So when my sister arrived at the funeral home for preparations, the gentleman in charge of taking care of her that night expressed this private statement to my older sister. Um, when when I saw your sister, um, I started to cry. I don't understand what was happening. When I looked at her, she was so beautiful and radiant. In all of my years, I never had an experience like this before. She did not need any makeup or anything from my hands. I wanted to hold her in my arms like she was my own daughter. I'm sorry. I wanted to stay with her for hours and hours, and I did. I stayed with her the whole night. Until she left the next day. I didn't want to leave her alone. I couldn't. When the gentleman's colleague came out with the casket, he said, "Who's that for? Send it back. Find the best and most expensive one we have. She deserves the very best. And I'm paying for it." Wow, just reading that over and over again. I mean, this guy wasn't even part of our family. And there are stories of strangers visiting our house and being drawn into my sister's room. And it's all part of this miraculous connection. And from that moment on, it changed my life. I, since then, had 2 more children. God was the center of my life. I attended and started serving Latin Mass now. This, my story, is what led me to the journey of Catholic audio prayers.
And truly, as we said, obviously your sister, your family, your parents had so much to suffer, but you really touched on that in that moving story, that great gift of God, because your sister Rosemary, even though she suffered, and obviously, as you say, even though she bore original sin, once that was cleansed in baptism, she was not capable. So she was not capable of committing an actual sin, given her condition, and so was as you say, an innocent soul. And it's just beautiful to hear that someone, as you said, who first doesn't even know your family or know the history, and who works all the time in this kind of a situation. You said he worked for the funeral home. That it had to be something supernatural for him to have that reaction. I mean, that's just not something that's explainable any other way. And what a beautiful confirmation for your family of again, the beautiful life your sister led.
And I want your viewers to know that that God can work miracles in every situation, and to never lose hope, and continue to pray, because life is short. Life is short.
Yes.
So pretty much here we are at the start of Catholic audio prayers. Did you want to ask a few questions, or should I just kind of dive into experience?
Yes. So how you, so what gave you the idea of the website of Catholic audio prayers?
So the idea came from Mother Angelica. She has, recordings of her rosary with some beautiful music to it. And of course, she must have done this several years back. And listening to them and praying the rosary, I sort of sometimes pick the audio version instead of sort of saying it like traditionally, and after listening to the rosary, her rosary, I thought to myself, this music is so beautiful, but it's so hard to hear. It must have been recorded so long ago. It's almost like tape deck type of sound.
Yes. Yes.
Which forgive me, Mama, Mother Angelica. I'm not. You're the reason why I did this. And so I thought maybe I can find some music like hers and replace it, still using her, voice to the rosary.
Mhm.
And I spent a couple days doing it, and it didn't work out. And I think that was for a reason. Now, I said, let me record my own rosary, at least for personal use, and let me put some music to it. And so I started searching the internet for some music, and I stumbled upon a singing monastery, which so happens to be world famous, and world famous for a reason, because they're blessed with such beautiful voices, and they are the monastery in your introduction, the Benedictines of Mary, Queen of Apostles. And so I recorded my first I've recorded my first album for personal use. And then I think something might have come over me and say, I want to share this out. I want to get people praying again. I want to reach all the Catholics of the world, as in some previous podcasts that I was a guest on. But now that I think about it, I'd like to reach everybody, of all denominations, because a rosary can change someone like that, if God wills it. So I reached out to
Mother Cecilia, I guess.
Yes. And again, I didn't know her at the time, and she got back to me, and we had a long conversation. I told her about a brief version of my life, not to the extent of what your viewers are going to get tonight. And she said she was very blessed that I was sharing the story with her, and that I told her what I wanted to do, and she gave me her blessing to use the music.
And this in the picture here in the far left is Mother Cecilia there, whom we're speaking about. I guess I should add for our viewers who don't know, I actually am familiar with the community. My wife's sister is a professed nun with the Benedictines. So she's been there since the year in very earlier, I guess, incarnations of the Benedictine, of the current abbey. She's been there since the year 2000. So you got her permission to use this in what you wanted to do. At this point, was it just the rosary?
I mentioned to her I wanted to put it to the rosary, but I was also on a quest to do every single rosary and chaplet approved, every approved rosary and chaplet that ever exists, because no one's ever done this. This is a first of its kind. And then she thought that was wonderful. And there was a second phone call where she suggested specific music they had to go with specific rosaries. Saint Michael chaplet, they got music for that. The Holy Souls, and so on and so forth. And obviously you can see in my background, your viewers can see my background. I have a good chunk of albums that I have created that are on the website for those that want to sample them, and the full version is available to them. And moving forward, I'd like to have a big collection where everybody can sort of go to one place and they can browse the whole library that will be, and I'm hoping that there will be something for everybody. And it is the music of these beautiful nuns that bring out such beautiful prayers that are said.
So, and maybe if we jump back to the website, because again, you mentioned one, and this is, I think, one of the most beautiful chaplets, the St. Michael the Archangel chaplet, that I had very, very even traditional Catholics are not familiar with. So do you, on the website, do you provide a text somewhere if someone wants to read the words or how to say the chaplet?
So I'm actually working on that.
Okay.
Right now, it's if somebody does make a donation for the full album,
Mhm.
I'll ask them if they want the quote unquote lyrics or the prayer, and I'll do it at request.
Okay.
But eventually, when I get more help, I'm sort of doing this all by myself.
Yes.
If obviously if God wants it so, and this becomes I don't want to call it a business unless it's a business of saving souls.
Yes.
Um, you know, I donations help with the work that I do and helping support the family. And so if I can have a good income that comes in, I can sort of expand. I can get some
Or-
help to designate, certain tasks. And I'd like to put the lyrics. I mean, I have them, but I'd like to put them attached to each one of these.
Mm.
I do have some of these on iTunes and Spotify,
Mhm.
and frankly, they're very expensive to sort of put on there and keep on there. So we'll see where God takes this.
Mm.
Um, you know, I hope it's His will. I believe it is. And again, I just want to say I'm very grateful to be on here and to share this with you.
Sure. Well, let's maybe at that point take a little bit and listen to the sample of the Chaplet of St. Michael.
The Chaplet of St. Michael the Archangel, indulgence by Pope Leo XIII, September 25th, 1888. Recorded by Richard W. Carlucci. Musical background provided by and in conjunction with the Benedictines of Mary, Queen of Apostles. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. O Immaculate Heart, help us to conquer the menace of evil, which so easily takes root in the hearts of people of today, and whose immeasurable effects already weigh down upon our modern world, and seem to block the path towards the future. From famine and war, deliver us. From nuclear war, from incalculable self-destruction, from every kind of war, deliver us. From sins against the life of man from its very beginning, deliver us. From hatred and from demeaning of the dignity of children of God, deliver us.
And there again, you get a flavor, as it is. This is one of my personal favorite chaplets, the Chaplet of St. Michael. And you hear really the angelic, is the best word I can use to describe it, voices of the Benedictine sisters there. So again, I do want to thank you for this particularly, because I remember I was back when Mother Angelica was welcome on EWTN decades ago. The rosary, the beautiful rosary she did provide, and for you to take that idea and expand upon it with such this extensive collection is really an incredible service for Catholics and for the Church.
Thank you. And I actually have a surprise for you and your audience.
Yes.
I'm sharing this with you. You're going to be the first to know during a show that I am recording my first Latin rosary album with two local artists from Connecticut and Massachusetts. And when you hear their voices, you and everyone in the world is going to be blown away. And we're in the process of recording this album and soon to be released.
And it'll be released through your website. That's where we'd see it.
It's going to be released right through the website.
Great.
That's correct.
Great. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And again, so you come to the website, as we mentioned, there's the audio store where we've been looking at the different rosaries or chaplets, some news and information, difference between a rosary and a chaplet. And then as Richard mentioned, he has 6 children to support. Having 6 children of my own, I know a little bit of what that can involve.
Well,
Um,
I'm one of 6
oh,
children.
sorry, you're one of 6. Sorry.
But I have 4.
4.
So
Okay. So excuse me, I did get that
don't
wrong.
give me more than I can handle.
Oh, God never does. He gives us exactly what we can handle, just exactly what we can handle, right? To the point sometimes.
Yeah.
But anyway, 4 children to care for, and again, he's done this clearly out of love. But if you want to help him with this, to help give him the time, right, that a donation would by helping to support him, you can do that here right on the website here to help. Obviously, you can help by purchasing the full albums, but also directly through the website. And I don't know, I may have seen this on your website, but I know there's the famous quote from St. Augustine, and I don't remember the exact, but to paraphrase it, he who sings prays twice. You may have something like that on your website somewhere, and it's really, I think, such a beautiful part to integrate the music, because we all, and having 6 children, you probably know with 4, saying the rosary and saying the daily rosary as a family is challenging. It's it's a prayer that it's very simple, and very simple, and all the chaplets and rosaries are in what they are, but really to pray it well is difficult and is complex, and aids that we can bring to do that, to improve our meditation and our efficaciousness of our prayer, are wonderful. And particularly having young children, it's 13 minutes, 14 minutes to say a rosary is a long time for a 4 or 5-year-old. But if you can use the album and the music as ways of helping to form their recollection, that really can be wonderful. So encourage people. It's one. There's a story I know, actually, of a priest who was visiting in London, and he was staying in a particular church there, and there was a monk from one of the traditional abbeys. I think it was La Barue, but I'm not 100% sure of that detail. But one of the traditional abbeys in France, who was staying there, and another one of the English priests said, "Oh, you're one of those monks from that abbey. Oh yeah, you love like singing all those chants and those Latin chants and saying the divine office and all. That's good for you, since you like that so much." And the monk, according to this priest, turned to him and said, "Actually, on a daily basis, I don't like it so much. It's really hard. It's difficult. It's difficult. And the reason I do it is not because I love it, but because I know it's pleasing to God." And I so much about that the rosary is beautiful, but saying repetitive prayers, and saying it every day, as Our Lady wants us to do in the family. Is to say it well is difficult, and so to provide these aids for people to help with that, to help bring a angelic spirit of recollection, is really a wonderful service for the church. So hopefully our viewers can support you by making use of the resources and then donating to your efforts.
Yeah, thank you very much. With the world so busy, and to pray well, like you mentioned, is often hard. And again, as you said, just to reiterate, hoping that this journey of Catholic audio prayers, at the very least, gets everyone else's journey or ball rolling, so they can make it to a point where they can pray it very, very well, even if it's listening to it in their car to work, or jogging, or at the gym, and so on and so forth.
Yes, certainly better than listening to CNN News or something at the gym. Definitely get more out of it than that.
Who?
Oh, I was saying better than listening to CNN or some
I
news.
don't know. I don't know who CNN is.
Corrupt news network. No, sorry.
Yeah, no, yeah.
But again, there is so much time in our day, whether it's commuting on a train or driving or walking somewhere, where if I assume you could download these to your phone or a device.
Yeah, they're simple audio format. You can download them and place them wherever you want.
Yes, and then have a little library there to make use of that time. So wonderful. So we're about towards the end of our time together. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us about your story or about Catholic audio prayers?
No, but I would like to share with all your listeners, and again, to reiterate, I know life is hard. It's hard to bear your cross. I get
Yes.
you. I understand you. Uh, it seems like every day you wake up and you have to do it all over again. It feels like it never ends.
Yes.
But I would say to you, don't give up the fight. Time is short. Your goal is heaven.
Yes. Beautifully, beautifully said. Really beautiful. And thank you for sharing, as difficult as it is, the personal stories that you did, because they're really very inspiring, and I hope everyone here has been inspired by them. And I certainly can see the fruit of your family suffering in the beautiful work you're doing again for the church. So thank you, and best of luck with the new album you alluded to. And again, I will remind our viewers, keep a lookout for that at catholicaudioprayers.space, S-P-A-C-E, catholicaudioprayers.space as the website, and I'll have a link to it posted along with the description of the video. So thank you for taking time to share your stories with us. And if you've enjoyed listening or watching this program, I encourage you, as always, please forward, share the video or audio podcast, like it, subscribe, particularly to our Rumble channel. As I mentioned in one of our recent broadcasts, we've received our first strike from YouTube. So we have our backup in Rumble, which is a more free, less censored space. So please begin subscribing over there, because I think at some point there's a risk, like many people who speak the truth, we may lose our YouTube channel. And please, if you also enjoy the free content we make available, consider subscribing to our monthly periodical Catholic Family News. As I mentioned, we have our May issue we're finishing off right now as we're recording this, and have some blockbuster articles, one by Chris Ferrara on the totalitarian regime that COVID has ushered in, and a beautiful article on the shroud, as I mentioned, by Father Couture, which really very, very inspiring. So please consider subscribing. For as little as $32 a year, you can get an electronic subscription to the paper. So again, thank you again for sharing your story, and thank you for listening. May God bless you.